This is the rest of the story. Remember at the very beginning, I was telling you, because this is 3 parts. It may not seem like it, but it's 3 different parts that all make up one entire show. The first part's about 40 minutes long, and it has a conversation in it where Charlie's talking about George leaving his life. The second conversation, it has Manson calling me on the phone, sounding kind of down, and then talking about Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, and all those things. That was the same conversation. The Sesame Street stuff, the Mr. Rogers stuff came at the very beginning of the call, and the Stimpson conversation came at the very end of the call. What led up to all that, though? What kind of context would it be for Charlie just to, out of the blue, start talking about George? Well, this is the rest of the story. I was talking about Mr. Rogers and how he was a hero of mine. And look at this as like commercials in between these, because this is one full episode here that explains everything about the call that you heard at the beginning, Mr. Rogers, and what I'm about to tell you right now. It all fits together. Manson's life's complex. I found that out from the very start. From the very beginning. Let me get back to what I was just talking about. I was talking about Mr. Rogers was my hero. Well, hero is a big word. I was impressed by the guy. He influenced me a lot. He gave me a lot of good thoughts and good feelings. Those kind of guys, you know? Hero is just a word. But another one of those guys was, I had a job in high school. Throughout high school, I worked in a funeral home. Moved dead bodies around. We did whatever it took. Let's just put it that way. We set up for funerals, and I even spent the night there because there was rooms there, and I stayed all the way at the top floor. I think I might have a picture of the place so I can see. It was like a Victorian funeral home, and at the very top there was like a place where you would, in a fairy tale, you'd see some dangling their hair out the window or something. That's where we stayed at, me and a friend of mine, Scott. And then during the daytime, if whatever we were doing, a lot of times we were just painting the funeral home or fixing it or whatever, we'd listen to the AM radio station. And during the day there was a guy by the name of Paul Harvey, and he had a program that was called This is the Rest of the Story. And he would tell you about a person, and he even has conversations that he does about Charles Manson. There's 2 of them. I just looked them up, and ironically, I don't know why, but ironically, his website just posted those conversations where he was talking about Manson, because he talked about him several times. They just posted those the other day. And I will put a link in the description down here in the comments, or not in the comments, above the comments where the description is, where it tells about the video. I put the links in there so that you can go check out Paul Harvey, and this is the rest of the story, where he talks about Charlie Manson in 2 of them. One of them he talks about him in Creepy Carpus, and another one he talks about him and Father Flanagan in the Boys Home. And he tells you more in depth, in detail, about a story that you didn't even know. So those are going to be in the links. But now, this is the rest of the story. Okay, we're in the years of, I was talking in the beginning of this, we're in the years of 1992 to 99, in around that era. And, I'm watching Manson's whole life of all these things that are going on. Am I part of it? A little bit. I doubt if he would have knew my name then, to tell you the truth. But although he did write my name on the very first, he wrote Michael, so, I don't know. But in throughout those years, it was pretty sporadic of the mail and that sort of thing. Okay, then when 99 came around, Manson immediately wanted me to visit. And I didn't get to visit for, I tried several times, and those are other stories. We'll get into those. But when Manson did get me in to visit, when I was finally visiting, when I finally had this will that had came in the mail, and I was already had it in a box, or probably some folder and plastic pages. That was when the conversation took place. With the conversation that you're hearing right now, within the 15 minutes of these 3 shows, that was the conversation. I was already visiting at that point. I already had that will at that point. He had already sent it in the mail. Okay, now we're going to go back in time a little bit before that. Before I ever get, just got the visiting form in the mail, and the prison informed me that I wasn't going to be able to visit him. We'll get into that another time on that story as well. Right now, I'm trying to explain this story. They making me jump through all kinds of hoops, just like they do at prisons. Just like Charles Manson was not an easy person to get in to see, and he had sent me the forms, and he's trying to get me in there to visit with him, and now there's problems, and I'm trying to explain it to him through the mail what the problems are, and he don't care. He don't care about problems. So this is one of the letters that I got back from him at that point. And it also has St. George in it, or George Stimpson. Used to call him St. George. It also mentions him in there. So George Stimpson was a reoccurring thing in the beginners of my life. Even though I didn't know this guy, he kept coming up all the time. And it was like this. Have you ever, maybe you can relate to it from your own childhood, or when you were a teenager, where you'd get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you'd go out for maybe the first time, or they'd come over to your house, and when they got there, the only thing that they could talk about was the last boyfriend that they had, or the last girlfriend that they had, and they would be comparing you to this girlfriend or boyfriend that they had the last time. Like, oh wow, she kissed a lot better than you did, or oh wow, I like how you kiss. You kissed a lot better than she did. That sort of thing. That comparison's like, whoa, it don't have nothing to do with me. Don't even tell me that stuff, But that was the kind of situation I was in with Manson. It seemed like one of his best buddies had just taken off on him, and every comparison that he was making with me then, like I said at the very beginning of this video, whatever you're telling me about me, you're not telling me about me, because you don't know about me. All you do is know about yourself. So either you're using yourself as an example, or you're using somebody else in your life as an example who's done something to you before on what I am. You can compare. That's good. We compare things in the world. It's like, oh wow, he's acting like old Jimmy. I don't want around Jimmy because I remember Jimmy broke my damn arm. So it's good to make comparisons, and people, a lot of people are the same people. Got into a lot of philosophical talk with Manson about people and understanding people and getting down into the deep of people. And what people seem to forget is we all are Charles Manson. The dude was a human being. The deepest things in our soul, you've thought some Charles Manson thoughts before. You have. That's why we're all one. We're all one. One is one is one. We're all human beings. The darkest, deepest shit that he could do, you could do. Or the smartest shit that he could do, on this side, you can do too. We are one human being. One. So we got in a lot of talk about people, on all sorts of things. But anyway, back to this. The only comparison that somebody has when they're telling you about you, don't listen to them. They're not telling you about you. They're telling you about somebody else. They may be telling you about their wife. They may be telling you about their brother. They may be telling you about a friend at work. They may be telling you about themselves. But they're definitely not telling you about you. And this is the same recurring thing that kept happening. It kept happening to me for about, I would say, probably 3 years. Until I broke through this shit. Quit fucking comparing me to your friends. I'm not your friends. I've already proven to you I'm not your friends. You put me through all this whole roller coaster, and now I can show you some of the things, and we'll talk about a lot of things. I haven't done any of that crap. I'm not that person. I'm not coming at you wanting to be an author. I'm not coming at you wanting to be, and he kept always wanting to do that kind of thing too, which I understood. I understood Manson wanted to stay relevant all the time. Well, I wasn't the person to do that. I was not, but I did hook him up with the people who were the people to do that sort of thing. From the people that ran Manson Direct in Pennsylvania, I hooked them up. And then what did they do later on? They threw me under the bus. You know, from Craig, who lived in North Carolina, what he called me, I hooked him up. So I was hooking people up into Manson's life that could help Manson, you know. And what do? Throw me under the bus. They get in, and I had nothing to do with Starr. Again, she was another person who wrote in, and I legitimately think Starr was in love with this dude. I don't have anything against her. I don't have anything against her at all. The only thing that I have against these people is they get into his life, and then they throw shit on you, like, just so that they can make themselves bigger. And it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't do them any purpose. It doesn't do them any good. I wasn't trying to do anything to this dude's life anyway. I was bringing people into his life that could help him, who eventually would kick me out anyway, or try to. You know, nobody ever did. And I got in many arguments down the line in the later years with Manson's life about his friends. It's like, I don't want anything to do with your fucking friends. Your friends get me in trouble. You compare me to these shitheads. I don't want compared to them. I'm not these people. I am your friend. Leave it at that. I don't bring my friends over to Corcoran and say, hey, all my buddies came along to, you know, we're all going to look at you and gawk at you now because these are my friends. I don't do that crap to you, so why do you do that to me? But he constantly did. And we would fight back and forth. So if anybody wants to say, oh, Manson, I talk shit to Manson. No, I didn't talk shit to Manson. I was continuously arguing with him about his friends, though. Him trying to put them into my life all the time. And sometimes, okay, I would let it. I would let it happen. If it could better him somewhere or another, I would let it happen. Okay, fine. But for the most part, I don't want to do anything to do with his friends, because at the very beginnings of this, when I got compared to his friends, I got the comparison of, you're going to do the same thing as that fucker did to me. No, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. Oh, no, I'm not. We just kept doing that over and over and over and over again. And the only way to prove something like that, which I knew, the only way to prove something like that is not leave. Stick around, you know? Stay there. And I already know what kind of person I am. I'm a pretty loyal dude. I mean, if you're loyal to me, I'm loyal back to you. And most of the people that, if they sit and think about it, even most of the people that don't like me, who do know me at one point, if you sit and think about it, I didn't do anything to you. You did something to you. You got something in your head like you were something bigger than me, and you had to destroy me so that you could be bigger. Okay, fine. And in that process, you hate me. Whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But all I've ever tried to do was be friends with all these people. And I'm telling you, that don't work. So anybody that's on the, y'all should be friends. Y'all like the same stuff. Well, the internet came around a long time ago, and that was tried. And nobody can be friends because everybody has something in the way. It's either somebody knows this information, or somebody knows that information, or somebody I did that first, or, you know, whatever. So many people have stolen shit of mine. I found shit of mine in books. I found shit of mine everywhere. I don't say nothing to these people. If it betters Manson's life to somebody to get a better opinion about the guy, who cares? Manson was the one that wrote it, not me, so it's not like my property anyway. He wanted the message out there nohow. So why should I be pissed if somebody stole it and put it in some book? Somebody's going to read it. Maybe Manson will influence them from what they read. That's how I've always looked at this. It's never been about money to me. I don't care less. We'll go on about the Reels film one day, too, on about how that whole film, that whole entire film, that everybody wants to take credit for all over the place, this, there, and everywhere. We'll go on about that one day, too. As you can see, if you look back in the background, you can see that Helter Skelter, that handprint. That thing pops up all the time in Reels. It doesn't pop up for just because we both have the same thing. No, that's actually what pops up. That's the actual handprint that pops up in that movie. And other things on this board pop up on there too. This was like a storyboard I made. I made the whole damn show, to tell you the truth. I don't get credit for things in this world, and I don't really care. People steal shit from me. Buddy Day, he's the biggest thief that there is out there. He's the biggest thief that he is out there. He knows it. I don't care if he sees this or not. He knows it too. I don't want no credit though. I'm not for credit. I'm not for that crowd. It's for the bettering of Manson. And plus Manson, he knew that he was dying. He wanted to be in the last film, but he makes it sound like, oh, I talked to him. No, he didn't. He's still on my conversations, and I talked to Manson. So basically, when you hear Manson talking in that whole film from the very beginning to the very end, it's Manson talking to me, which I can go into. I got the whole conversations of those things. I can leave myself in the conversation and let you hear it. But it's been happening like that since the beginning. People have just been, it's like a race, what we can steal from Manson. Lots have been stolen from me all along the way. I had to get an attorney to keep Buddy Day from stealing shit. He had a bunch of information of mine, like, oh, he copied a bunch of letters, had his film guy taking pictures of all these letters. I was just talking to the dude, but as he's stealing shit. He plugged his computer into my computer, took not all the conversations I had, but he took a pile of them that I was working on from cassette. He took them, put them on his computer, and took off with them. I had to chase him down in the parking lot to even, like, he wasn't even going to give me a contract for what the shit that he had stolen, and I didn't want him to use in the first place. And then it was harder than shit to, he was almost wanting to fight with me then after he had stolen my shit and ran out. That's the way these people operate. So if you think you're in some world with oh, he's my friend, we're buddies now, we do interviews, and you better watch, because these people, man, they are vicious. Remember, you're dealing with the Manson family here, so there's some vicious, crazy people that come out of the woodwork even. And I've seen them all. And this is the rest of the story. Like I said, I've been compared to this George Stimpson guy since the time I came into this. And I'll show you this letter too. This was when Manson sent me the form to visit. I'm having problems with the cops. They won't let me in there. I even tried to visit through this RD guy, this Roger Dale, this guy that George Stimpson talks, he's so vile. I wasn't friends with the dude. George evidently was. I wasn't, and I'm not disagreeing with him. He was vile, but Manson's friends were all vile. There wasn't any of them that weren't vile. I met some creepy people that were Manson's friends, but I respected the fact that they were Manson's friends, for Christ's sake. Roger Dale was Manson's friend from day one. Almost from the time he went on death row, Roger Dale was there. Poor guy was there. As a teenager, all he ever knew was prison, so of course he's going to be vile. He's come out with roses and shit? No, he's vile. And tough, too. Because he got the nickname Pincushion from being stabbed so much, from like having so many knives in him. He was basically a pincushion, for pins. And he still survived it all. The dude was tough. The dude was smart too. The dude was so smart, he was a con man too. Manson went into a lot of things with Roger about me too. It was a love-hate relationship. Would Manson have wanted to be in prison if he would have picked somebody? Would it have been Roger? No. Did Manson learn a lot of things from Roger Dale? Did Roger help protect Manson? Yes. That was the reason. For most of Manson's friends. His friends were for protection. So it was hard for me because most of my friends in life were little kids, we just go play football, whatever. We have common interests. We just liked each other after a while of hanging out. But Manson's friends weren't the same. He don't have the same kind of friends that you and I have. They're different. They come at him for reasons. There's a reason for this friendship. We're in this business deal with each other. We're this, we're that. You need some protection or I'm going to kill you. That's the kind of friends Manson had. So he didn't understand real friendship from the very get-go. From the very get-go, later on in life, he started, I could see real sentimental things coming him out of him all the time. Things that, I don't know if you ever knew though. So real friendship, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is all these other people that he came at with me with, comparing me to, that I was going to be the same as them, and I wasn't the same as any of these people. None of them, because I didn't really have any sort of an agenda. I mean, I thought I had a hell of an agenda going in there, like, oh yeah, I'm going to meet this serial killer guy and I'm going to get an autograph. That was my agenda. Same as anybody else would be, probably. Everybody would want the same damn thing if they wanted, but not everybody would want to go in and make an album or write a book or whatever, you know? So his friends, our friends, they're two different kinds of friends, you know? And you kind of understand, it's really hard to relate. You know, I try hard to like, no, dude, I'm not going to be like, I'm not. So I'm always like explaining myself for things that I didn't even do wrong, you know? So it was kind of that. And I felt bad for the dude. It even made me more of a friend of the guy. Seriously. To know that all these people were picking and poking and, just like little chickens, poking at each other all the time. And now they're poking at me. Now they're poking at me because, it just turns into a big mess. So getting back into the context of this conversation that we was having at the very beginning of this, he tells you about George. He tells you George left him. And George did leave him. George left him and never, ever came back. And I heard about that for the next, like I said, 3 years. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to do the same thing. Now let's get back to the form that he sent me that I'm trying to fill out to get in to visit this guy. And I'm getting refused. I'm trying to write Manson back and tell him. So the mail, you know, from here to there, it's like 1 day. It's not that. It's pretty quick because we're just pretty much right up the street from each other, really. It don't get there fast enough though, and he can't call every single night, so his imagination wanders. Again, all you can relate to is what you already know, and so he writes me this letter here. It says, you know, time is a wasting. I'm 67. Whatever you've been doing, you didn't let me in on it. Reminds me of St. George. He lived 7 years of my life and didn't let me know, he didn't let me in on what I was doing. Sit and think if you were me. I'll see you next month. I gotta catch up and waiting for you to get in line with the cops and games. I'm already the chief of the police. So that's how Manson thought. He had already thought that I wouldn't come in there. I gave up on him just like George did. And I was hearing this shit from day one. From day one. From a guy that I was actually trying to be friends with. I mean, I was almost begging George to be friends with me. And for whatever reason back then, he was too good for me. I don't know why. Maybe he has his reasons. Maybe he just don't like me. Maybe they thought I was going to sell his autograph. Maybe they thought Blue's autograph was worth more than it really is. And I don't know what his thoughts were, but I really tried to like that guy. I tried to beg him to like me. And even just in the recent past, I've ran into him and I've talked to him, and I still got the impression that he didn't like me. You know, and that was fine. I don't really push it then. I don't really say, hey man, why don't you like it? Even though I'm a Capricorn, and if there's 100 people in the room and 99 of them like me and one of them doesn't, I always want to know why, and I always wanted to make the one try to. I didn't really bother. Screw it. If you don't like me, you don't like me. I can't help it no more. The older you get, the less you care kind of thing, you know? So I don't think he's ever liked me. But to come out and just blast me for something that, you know, you don't know. You weren't there. You took off, dude. You have no idea. The only things about you know are you talked to Roger Dale on the phone and he was a vile guy, and then you hung up on him. That isn't a good move, especially if he's friends with Charlie Manson. Why don't you think more about Manson if you were his friend than thinking about yourself? Because if you hung up on this dude, you know how mean and vicious and wicked he is. Don't you think he went back and took it out on Charlie? Probably did. Because, hung up on him. Oh, you're a big man that day. What was the recourse of all that shit? See, that's the thing too. Nobody ever thinks about what was happening to Charlie Manson. They never do. They never have. All they've ever thought about is themselves. And then when anybody talks about you, all they can talk about is themselves. So, to the context of this conversation, I was now visiting Charlie Manson. And I went up to visit him on a Saturday. I'm working all week long. I'm working long hours too, you know, so I have to take time out of my day to get up there to visit him anyway in the first place. It's not like I'm not doing anything. I'm working my ass off. And so I get up early in the morning, which is one day I could have slept in, you know, and I go up to visit him. And that little prick don't come outside to visit me. And I know he's just fucking with me like he did everybody else. He tests everybody like that. He don't come out and visit. Sometimes he'll just sit there. And he'll make up some piss poor excuse, and it really made me mad. It made me so mad. I was pissed. And so I left. Okay, fine, whatever. The guards just tell you, hey, you gotta go. He don't want to come out. I'm like, what the fuck you mean he don't want to come out? He just doesn't want to come out. Okay, fine. And I leave. So he don't want to call you, you know. He doesn't want. He's not one to engage you either. After he does something to you, he kind of hides from you. So I don't get any call from him. And then later on in the week, I get a call from a dude who's in the same unit with him. And this dude asked me, first thing he says is, and this is the kind of shit that happened with Manson all the time too. You know, first thing he asked me is, can you do me a favor? Charlie wanted me to do you a favor, and he told me you'd do me a favor. All right, what do you want, man? Usually they ask you for money. And this dude really wasn't asking for that. He was asking for some girlfriend that some girlfriend who came to visit him, who now wasn't talking to him. He wanted me to call and tell her, you know, give him a call. So, okay, fine, I'll do that. Now, what's the favor of Manson? Manson's like, hey man, he wants to know if you're gonna come and visit on Saturday. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I? And I knowing why wouldn't I, because he just stood me up, you know, then. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Sure, I will. Okay, and I'll call your girlfriend too. And so, that's the end of that conversation. So then, Saturday comes. Again, I'm working my ass off all week long. The fucking Saturday comes along. I'm driving along in my truck, and I have a blowout on the tire, and the tread comes off, all the way off the tire. It starts wrapping around the axle of the truck. Man, puts me into a skid. This is early in the morning, headed to see Charles Manson. Puts me into a skid off the side of the road. Now I'm sitting on the side of the road just shaking because I don't know what the hell happened. I get out, I look, and I see the tires all wrapped around the axle. Those days, there ain't no cell phones. You got them on the side of the road. You got to walk to them, open it up the box. Then they just don't work like cell phones today. There was some kind of signal that it had to get, and after it got the signal, all you could hear was the traffic rushing by. You know, they'd finally send a tow truck, took me to a place, got the tire changed. By that point, it would have taken me an hour. I just said, screw it, turned around and went back, because I was like 5 hours in at that point. And now I'm sitting waiting for Manson to give me a call back again. And the dude with the girlfriend, he calls back again. And I have a part of that conversation, so I play the whole conversation of that dude, of him and his girlfriend, right now. I'll let you hear. So he calls me back and tells me a little bit about his girlfriend. You can hear that right here too. And then he asks me about, you know, hey, first he asked me, I don't have this on conversation, but it only kind of picks up halfway through. But he asked me about, you know, hey, why didn't you come visit Charlie and all that crap, somewhere in the beginning of the conversation that I didn't have. I do have where he is telling me about his girlfriend, and then he tells me he'll tell Charlie. And so you can hear me telling him I was broken down and at the end of the conversation, and to tell Charlie that, you know. So now it's like, first Manson stood me up. I guess he was trying to test me to see if I would come back. back. You know, if you come back, then you really want to see me. Well, I didn't come back. And that's all he knew in his mind. He's like, oh shit, I tested this dude, now he ain't coming back. And so here's the call of the guy, you know, I don't know who he is either. I have no idea who the guy is, just some random inmate that's beside Charlie Manson that Charlie Manson talked into calling me to tell me, hey, you know, first, did you get a hold of my girlfriend? And then second, you know, Charlie wants to know what the fuck's up. And this is that. So listen to that first, and then we'll get into when Manson calls me.
Bullshit. You know. Is she a girlfriend of yours or something? Well, the thing is we've had a few visits. You know, I dialed the wrong phone number actually and met her. That's how I met her, right? Mm-hmm. But she's like, I introduced her to Juan out in the visiting room, and she went ballistic. Really? Yeah, so I was tripping. I didn't know that. She didn't do it then. She waited till she went home and wrote me a letter talking about, the next thing you'll probably be wanting to do is introduce me to Charlie Manson or something. And I was like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Yeah. But who knows? I ain't heard from her 17 days, so, you know, I go home next year, I'm short. Fuck it, you know? Yeah, I left her a message there with some guy. There's some guy that picked up the phone, and I don't even know what her name was. Jan. Yeah, I thought it was Jen or Jan or something like that. And I says, yes, is Jen there? It's like, no. Like, yeah, I'm calling for one of my friends, and could you give her my phone number and have me call me back? Now it's never nothing, no call back. Then I call and the fucking phone ring and ring and ring and ring. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with her, man. I'm fucking, you know what I mean? Yeah. I ain't tripping though. Yeah. But anyways, he sends his love. He'll call you tonight. Okay, cool. Tell him about that fucking hillside up there. Now how rough it is, man. Man. I know you went through some trips. That fucking sucks, man. Standing on the side of the road. Fucking. But you know, you gotta do what you gotta do when your fucking shit breaks down. That's right. All right, well, you take care of yourself. You too, man. All right. Hey. All right.
Okay, it was about, I would say, 5 minutes after that guy hung up that Charlie called. And when Charlie called, the first, you heard it already. Hello, hey, how you doing? And he's like, hey, I'm all right. Sound really down. That's when he was talking about Mr. Rogers and all that shit. So you go back and listen to that. That's the very beginning of this conversation. After this dude found out that I had broken down now, I hadn't visited Manson for 2 weeks. He thought I was George again. And now we're going into the conversation of basically wrapping it up here. Manson's telling me I'm somebody now. And I'm special, and he's propping me up, and before he goes into, he thought I was George. And then he goes into, we basically go into this mind battle of, hey, I knew you were thinking that I stood you up because you stood me up. And I was getting my point across to him that I know you stood me up. I know you did. So I knew you were thinking that. I knew that already in the middle of the day because I've got you figured out like that on how you think. And that's exactly what we get into in this conversation. So now you know that, again, and you can finish it off with this conversation. I'm not going to put the words on it or anything like that. You'll just have to figure it out and hear it for yourself on what we're talking about. But that's the gist of it. 2 weeks, 1 week I went, Manson stood me up. Second week, my tire wrapped around my axle, had to go get it, all this, put me back 5 hours, so I just turned around and came back. And 2 weeks now, Manson hasn't seen me. And he thinks that I'm giving up on him again like George did. And that'll be the end of the conversation.
This is the MCI operator. I have a collect call from... Your call is being connected. Thank you for using MCI.
Hey, what are you whistling?
I don't know. I was just sitting here looking at this TV. nerves, don't it?
It gets to wasting my mind, man.
It starts eating at your mind like little maggots.
Yeah, I'd rather get bored and have my own life and do my own thing than be not.
This recorded call is from an inmate at a California state correctional facility.
I'm one of them impressionable people. If I got a TV in my cell, I'll be watching it all the time.
Oh, yeah?
I watch Little Rogers and Purple Dragons and all that shit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You like that purple dragon?
Yeah, whatever. Barney?
Barney.
Yeah. Kid shows. See, what they do is they give you a TV, but they take away all the stations. You only get, you get all kinds of stations, right?
Probably like 80 of them or so, I guess.
Yeah, well, here they get about 3 or 4.
One of them's a prison station.
Yeah, one was a student station with Sesame Street and all that. And actually, that station is a lot of times better than all them commercials, man.
Yeah.
You sit there for an hour, man, and 45 minutes is some kind of damn commercial.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to tripping, man. Like, I should have told you that when you started coming to visit, that you're in a movie like The Day of the Jackal.
The Day of the Jackal?
Yeah. In other words, you're subject to all kinds of things that you never even dreamed about before.
Oh, yeah?
There'll be people that want to stop you from visiting. There'll be people that want to control you and talk you into things.
Oh.
You know, in other words, like, the minute you become somebody, everybody that wants to be somebody don't want you to be anybody.
Isn't it?
Big jealous snake laying outside your life, man, just waiting for to stop you from doing anything you might want to do. Then there is that guy in your mind.
Who's he?
Whoever is in your mind that's controlling your mind, that's telling you to do things.
That's me, probably.
Well, I mean, you call it you, but actually it's a programmed pattern of all the people you've met in your whole life.
That's probably true. You're right.
There's all kinds of people in your mind. Your mom is in there.
Yeah.
You say, well, that guy stood me up, so I'll stand him up.
I didn't say that. That's in your mind.
No,
I knew that's what you'd be thinking.
yeah, is that what you thought I was thinking?
I knew that's what you was thinking.
You was thinking that, wasn't you?
No, I wasn't thinking that. I knew you were thinking that. I knew you.
Thinking that. That's what I was thinking that.
Maybe. But I knew that you were going to think that. That's why I was wanting you to call here last night. I was thinking, man, I know that's what he's thinking.
If you knew that, then that's why. Because like you're in my mind telling me what I know.
I must. Because I knew that you were I fucking knew you were thinking that.
It doesn't matter, man. Like that's the edge I live on. I live on the outer limits, man. I don't give a fuck if the world don't roll.
Oh, I know you don't. I know.
You know, like I'm in here. Most everybody here's got hepatitis C.
I know.
The guy that was in the cell right before me got AIDS. He died in the damn cell with AIDS. I was going to clean the cell out, but I'm too lazy. I don't give a fuck. You know, in other words, like, what have I got to get up for? Everything I got, they took it. You know, I got a letter from a guy in Pennsylvania who's willing to put this album out that they've been stealing from me all these years.
Right.
He wants to put it out.
Yeah, I know him. He's a good guy, too.
Yeah. Well, George was a beautiful guy until he got so big he didn't have time to, you know, like he got rich, man, and you know, all the stuff he got, like, he didn't have time for all that, and all the promises he made, he didn't keep them. You know, all my art went down the road. I don't know what the hell happened to all that stuff. You know, I know that, I hear that I got an article in the paper says I make $100,000 a year.
You do. You did. Well, I'm not saying you make that much money. I know that that's a bunch of horse shit, but I'm saying, yeah, there was that article in the newspaper.
Yeah, and all the things that was going on, George never let me know what the hell was going on. Anything that was happening about my life, he'd keep it hid and go off and make do what he wanted to do with it. You know, somebody even sent me evidence where the DA had done some dirty tricks, like set the ranch on fire and subordinate testimony and switch fingerprints and shit. And he wouldn't give it to me. He said he wanted to put it in his book.
What?
Saving it for his book.
Shit.
And when his book was supposed to come out, he ran and didn't put the book out. He said he was going to put an art book out, and I was going to get the money from the art book. And he was going to get the money from the big book because he wanted to make a better book than Julio's. He wanted to make a good crime book.
Right.
So I was helping him do that, and then when it come around, man, he just, you know, I can't even get to the damn canteen, man. I'm just barely teen door, man.
This recorded.
Yeah, that's fucked up. How much can you draw to go to the canteen now?
Huh?
How much can you draw for the canteen?
180.
Can you?
Yeah.
All right, you'll have it.
Yeah, well, I got to, you know, I'm not a beggar, man. I'm not like RD, man.
Oh, god damn. He's a fucking, oh, Christ almighty. He's the best of the beggars.
Yeah, I hate to impose on anyone about anything, man. I'm like, if I'm not wanted somewhere, I'm gone.
No, don't be fucking thinking that bullshit. Oh, he stood me up, so I stood him up. Fuck that.
You know, I always think the bottom line.
You think the worst, man.
I always think the worst, man. That's how I survived all these years.
Oh, fuck, I knew you were thinking that. As soon as that fucking happened, I'm thinking, fuck.
That's what I would have been thinking if I was in your spot, man.
Yeah.
You know, we all think the same things. We got the same kind of brain.
I wish you were there broken down with me.
Yeah, I wish I was too. So I got my door open and the cops screaming at me.
Oh, yeah?
But they didn't give me my time. You know, they cheat me out of 4 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Yeah, they probably charged me for it.
So now you know the rest of the story. Again, watch Paul Harvey. He's a cool dude. Again, he's not so kind with Charles Manson because he was a journalist. He was following along with all that whole Helter Skelter thing. He usually calls him Chuck, you know, all the way up until the end. You go like, that Chuck is Charles Manson. But anyway, he tells good stories, and his stories are true. So that's one good thing. My Secret Service hat. Got this. Special. From 1997, 99 in Manson's life, the Secret Service was investigating several people, and one of them happened to be me. They showed up at my house, and we'll get into that the next time on the rest of the story. Although, that's the end of that story. We'll get into another story. Until then, thanks for watching so much. I appreciate it so much. Peace out.